Imagine this, photo editing without ever having to create another mask manually again. That's the dream, but is it finally a reality? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Anthony Turner, I'm a professional photographer, and in this video we are going to take a look and see whether Skylum have finally delivered on MaskAI. The idea is this: the artificial intelligence inside of Luminar Neo will use its neural networks to analyze your photo and look for elements within the scene and then automatically mask those objects that you select. A simple enough idea, but the execution of it, it's like the stuff of science fiction. It really is. So the question is, have they finally done it? Have they finally delivered on the holy grail of masking? And if so, how can it benefit us in our photo editing? That's what we're going to take a look at in this video. So let's get right into Luminar Neo. So in front of me here, we've got a photograph of my wife I took while we were traveling Spain. And it's got a lot of different elements that make up the photograph, so it'll make it an ideal candidate to test out this new masking technology. So we've got a person, we've got architecture, we've got sky, and we've got greenery as well. And one of the main issues with this photograph is that it's underexposed, which of course I did deliberately. What, me? Underexpose my photo? Never. But let's see if we can't standardize this exposure a wee bit. So if we jump into the develop section, you'll notice straight away now that we have not only the adjustments, but also this masking option here. So let's make a slight change. Let's brighten things up a bit. And let's say that we only want to apply this to my wife here. So we're going to come into the masking section and look at this. We've got brush, linear gradient and radial gradient. So you'll be familiar with all of these options, but now at the bottom, we also have AI mask and also some really useful actions that we can apply. But if we jump into the AI mask, straight away Luminar goes into work analyzing our photo. And once it's done that, the neural network comes back with some options for us. We can select human, sky, flora, architecture, mountains, the natural ground, and the man-made ground. So that's really cool and pretty mind-blowing that it's making a distinction between what is a man-made ground and a natural ground. So you can use that for things like paths, or in this case, this wall here. But let's take a look. Let's select my wife. Let's click on human. And there you go. In spite of quite a busy background that she sat on, it's made a pretty good selection of her that we can certainly use as a Kickstarter. But here's the cool thing. Not only can we use the AI mask, but we can come in and refine it as well. So what we can do is actually add or subtract to that mask. And so we can come into the brush, for example. We could come to paint. And now with a slightly less strength and a smaller brush, let's come in and I'm just going to paint the effect over her hand as well. And there you go. You can see that we're now adding to that mask. So it's really easy to refine your masks. And once you've got your mask as you want it, you might want to come back in and just make some slight adjustments. Right, let's see if we can't add some structure AI, but only into the architecture. So if I boost that all the way up to 100, you can see it's affecting our whole image, which probably isn't really what we're after. And so we can jump into masking. And previously I would have been coming in and painstakingly trying to paint this in only where I want it. But that is a huge waste of time. And so I'm going to see whether AI mask by clicking architecture can get us closer than using the brush. Although initially that looks pretty bad, we can actually utilize what it has created for us as a kind of stepping stone just to kickstart our masking and get us to the selection that we want much quicker. So let me show you how we could do that. So let's come out of AI mask, jump back into the brush tool and make sure we're on erase. And this time we can come in, as soon as we click, we see our mask again, and we can literally come in and just paint away the areas that we don't want the mask applied to. I don't mind a little bit of structure over my wife, but not too much. So we'll just click here with a lower strength and just start painting that away and just try and create a smoother transition from the effect and the mask that Luminar's created and my wife. And there we go. Let's toggle our before and our after, before and after. And hopefully you can appreciate that even with the flaws of that initial architecture mask, we were still able to use it to get a lot closer to what we were after much quicker. Okay, purely for demonstration purposes, let me make some color changes here. I'm going to change the color of the fields to more of a rich foliage green. So I'm going to grab the orange hue and push that into that green territory, and we'll do the same with the yellows as well. As you can see, we're getting an unwanted color shift over on the left-hand side of the photo. And one way to deal with that would be just to come in with a linear gradient mask, click and drag that just over the area we want it. However, if you pay attention to the wall just here, that is also having a color shift as well, from an initial grey orange tint through to that green. So that's not what we want. So I think a much more accurate way to do that would be to leverage the AI mask tool again. So I'm going to drop down the mask actions here, and this time I'm just going to go and clear the mask that we made previously, and this time I'm going to invoke AI mask, and this time I'm going to select natural ground. I'll jump out of the mask section, and now we can see that that effect is only applied over this natural area here. And again, if we want to refine the mask and take it away from certain areas, we can use the erase tool on the brush and just paint it back from areas where we think the effect is just a bit too strong. We can also increase the effect if we want in other areas. There's not really anything I want to do to the sky in this photo. However, just for demonstration again, let's jump into the develop section, and we're going to brighten up the sky. And we'll also take the temperature into that blue territory, so we give it a really nice rich blue. Then we're going to jump into masking, AI mask, and this time we just need to select the sky. And the fact that it's masked the sky in two distinct segments, because we've got this architecture breaking the line here, it's not just a case of a horizon line and then the sky above. This is actually a pretty complex mask, so it's done a pretty good job. However, we do have a slight bit of haloing going on around the edging, and I do feel that with subsequent releases, we'll not only start to see these masks become more accurate, but I also think we'll probably start to see some other controls that are going to allow us just to refine the edges of these masks. But for now, this is still pretty cool. So let's jump into the adjustments. Let's look at our before and our after. So we are making a change only into that sky. The fact that we've been able to speak into specific areas of the photo, such as a human, the architecture, sky, the elements in the landscape as well, and make specific changes to those areas, that is actually a really big deal. And if you're serious about your photo editing, that is absolutely what you want. They may or may not be immediately obvious to you, but this really opens up a lot of possibilities for creative editing and actually being able to mask stuff so much quicker. Oftentimes there are enhancements that I want to make in a photo and I just don't do it because I'm too lazy to go in and specifically mask that area, like with the architecture in this particular photo. The payoff between the time it would take me to mask that manually and the result of adding that structure, it just wouldn't be worth it. But because I'm able to do it just with a simple click and a really quick cleanup of the brush, I'm like, I might as well. So for our overall photo editing experience and the creativity, I think this is a massive win. If you're not sure how this AI mask can benefit you, consider subscribing to the channel because I will be covering this a lot more in depth. But for now, what I'm going to do is smash through some examples just to show you guys more about how it works and hopefully give you some inspiration of how you can use it on some of your own photos. Okay, in front of me, we've got a nice photograph of my new car. Yeah, unfortunately, professional photography hasn't been that good to me. It is actually just a model car. However, this will be a really good example to see whether MaskAI can actually select this vehicle for us. So what if we wanted to change the color of the car, which you could see I had already done, but I had to painstakingly mask that by hand. Oh, what a waste of time. So let's say we want to change the color of this lovely Lambo. Let's grab the hue shift and I don't know, let's make it this kind of purpley color. But you can see that our background is also being affected, which isn't what we want. So we're going to come into the masking section, AI mask. Luminar's going to do its thing and send all these crazy little fireflies all over the screen while it calculates where the car is, and it comes back to us and it says we can select transport. So let's click that, and that's actually a very good, very usable mask. So if we come back to the adjustments, you can see that only that masked area is affected. Obviously you wouldn't want it on the brake light, so you can come into the masking section again. We're going to come to brush and just erase that just from the light section there. We may also want to remove it from the wheels as well, so we could just come in there. Obviously you'd be painting this just slightly more accurately. And that actually underlines why this artificial intelligence masking is so important, because it's just a time waste to do it yourself, and there's also that potential of just going wrong. So let's pretend I hadn't just officially gone over the lines there. Here's our before, here's our after. We've been able to make that color change specific to the car using MaskAI. Nice. What else? Okay, let's jump into the portrait section, and here's an example of how this could benefit you on a commercial headshot shoot. So this photo was nothing more than a lighting test. You can see the corner of my light here. And let's suppose the company ended up with all their photos like this. But then let's suppose, as clients sometimes like to do, come back to you and change their mind on something. Let's suppose that they wanted a white background instead of this. Well, using the new mask tools, we could absolutely do that with limited fuss. Let's just do some quick base raw development. And now let's come back into the develop section and let's say that we want to neutralize the slight color cast on that background. Well, now that's super easy. We can just grab the saturation slider and come into MaskAI, let our very clever fireflies do their thing. And though I don't always feel like it, apparently I am a human, so I'll click that. And just like that, we have a pretty accurate mask of me. We can refine that mask and just include a little bit more of my hair. So we can come to the brush tool and just paint this in. Make sure my brush is nice and small. Just bump that strength up just a little bit so I can get this done just a little bit quicker. Okay, we can see that I am masked and I am now black and white. Obviously, that is not what we want. We want the opposite of that. And so within the mask actions now, we just come in and we click invert. We've now got a neutral grey background, but as I said before, we actually want to turn this to a pure white. And so I'm just going to grab the exposure slider, bring that up. Maybe we'll bring the actual white point up as well. And if you're still not hitting pure white, you can come into the curves, and this will definitely do it by grabbing the white point on the curves and just bringing that over to the left. Easy. Look at that. Here's our before, here's our after. Obviously, I'll do a little bit of a tighter cleanup on the mask. So overall, if you're a portrait photographer, that's a really practical application for that tool. Okay, let's look at one more example before I give you my conclusion on this new tool. If you don't have Luminar Neo yet and you like the look of what you see, I've got a discount code that works through the link in the description below. Also, at time of release, Skylum put together a really attractive package, not only for newcomers, but also people who have pre-owned Luminar and want to upgrade to Neo. I do have a word of warning though. A lot of what is inside Luminar is obviously AI driven, and therefore it is quite memory and processor intensive. So if you're chugging along on some 1993 IBM PC, oh, this is going to work really well, don't expect it to. However, they do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if it's not quite what you were hoping for, you can always get your money back. So check out the link in the description below, and let me give you one more example before we wrap things up. Okay, after this assault on our eyes, let's find someone much more attractive. Let's see what we could do with this photo of my friend Sammy. Okay, yet another photo where I didn't nail my exposure. Oh dear. Let's come into the exposure slider and bring this down. Now, even if we bring down the overall exposure so it looks much better, we still have the issue of her getting lost against this bright brickwork here. And so what could we do? Well, we could create a whole new develop tool, grab the exposure slider, bring that down, maybe bring the highlights down as well. And currently the whole photo is getting destroyed, but all I care about is the wall here. And so how would I select the wall? There is no wall selection, but what we can do is actually come into the masking, come into AI mask, let the magic fireflies do their thing, and then we can come in and select human. And that is actually a very impressive mask. Look at all the detail in the hair here, which has all been masked very accurately. We have a slight bit of spill between her arm and the wall, but really that's not surprising because of how their brightness values were very similar. And so all we need to do, as you know, just like we've been doing before, is come in, grab the erase tool, and I'm going to roughly just paint that away. And as a Kickstarter of this, we want the opposite. So we're going to come back into this section where we have the mask actions. We're going to invert the mask. So now we have everything apart from Sammy, and we're going to grab the brush. And all we need to do is just erase the effect from the background. And we don't need to fully erase it. We can leave some of that darkening in around the edge as if it's a bit of a vignette as well. And just like that, we've gone from overexposure to a much better balanced photo. And let's realize not only have we dropped the exposure from our before and our after, but we've actually created an exposure separation between the wall she's leaning on and where her arm is. So we've actually darkened down the wall using MaskAI. So if we think about MaskAI creatively, we realize that even though currently Luminar only has 8 object classes, we're not only limited to those classes, because as you saw in this example, I actually created my own class of wall by subtracting the human element from the background, thus leaving the wall bit behind. So creatively, we have a lot of options with this MaskAI. When Luminar was first released, it had cutting-edge technology like sky replacement that had industry giants like Adobe racing playing catch-up. It's got enhanced AI that can improve your photo with one magic slider. And then some tools that have been added just seem a little bit gimmicky. Powerlines AI, I'm looking at you. Now, while it's not perfect, for me, AI Mask is Skylum back to its best, delivering us photographers tools that get rid of the mundane tasks that we just don't like doing so that we can better focus on the more creative things that we genuinely do love. Currently, the accuracy of the masks it produces ranges from fair at best to actually very good, particularly when you're looking at portraits. And I can see a really positive future for this tool with a trajectory of improvement. Reason being, AI Mask is creating very accurate portrait masks, and that's because Luminar has been masking portraits for some time with bokeh AI. We just never had access to those masks before. Now we do. And so its ability to mask portraits has continually improved, and I see the same thing happening for all of those other objects that it's going to have in its masking library. No doubt you're going to have your own thoughts and opinions of them, and I would love to know what they are, so please let me know in the comments. And currently there'll be another video popping up around my head that YouTube thinks may be of interest to you. So pause the video, leave me a comment, and why don't you go and click on that video, and I'll see you over there. Thanks so much for watching.